Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. We've got another heavy news day today. Didn't get through everything. Lots of stimulus and UBI to go over. Let's get cracking. Shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park and Shay Meehan, as well as all our other patrons. I could not do this without you. So here's the current state of stimulus negotiations on the Hill. Every faction is taking their own position. Trump's team have proposed removing the $300 UI bonus from the bipartisan bill and replacing it with stimulus checks. Presumably that's to keep the price tag under $1 trillion in the hopes of getting it through the Senate. If they're going to replace anything, UI would not be the thing in my opinion. I'd say cut PPP, as that program was abysmal in its efficacy. The Democrats, on the other hand, are saying stimulus checks should be added on top of the bipartisan bill, bringing the cost above the $1 trillion mark. And McConnell definitely takes the last place trophy, proposing legal immunity for employers, no UI bonus, and no stimulus checks. The GOP Senate truly is a cesspit. 58 members of Congress signed onto a letter to congressional leadership yesterday to urge the inclusion of stimulus checks in whatever bill is passed, arguing it should be the number one priority. You can find an article and the letter itself with all signers in the podcast description. Give them some positive feedback to let them know that they're on the right path. Representatives Lisa Blunt and David McKinley, in particular, have also introduced a bill in the House that calls for $1,000 stimulus checks to every American, adult and child. Yang thanked them and requested that everyone follow both of them on social media and let them know that we appreciate their advocacy. A new poll has been going around showing that 87% of Democrats, 71% of independents, and 70% of Republicans favor another stimulus check. Matt says it's from LRP, but doesn't link the source. I haven't been able to find it. Best guess is it's from Lake Research Partners, a progressive public opinion agency, but I can't say what the methodology is. It does roughly align with previous polls on cash relief, however. If you want to make your voice heard, and I know you do, call the congressional switchboard and leave a message for your representatives in Congress that unconditional cash relief is the most effective and efficient method of aid and must be the top priority. Tell them you expect to hear them publicly support it and lobby congressional leaders for it if they want to get your vote next election. Number is in the links. Send a letter to Pelosi and McConnell as well, since they are, unfortunately, the only ones who need to be convinced. There's been a factoid circulating around that helps put the criminal handling of coronavirus in America into perspective. It's a list of the deadliest days in American history. Number 1 is Hurricane Galveston's landfall at 8,000 deaths. Number 2 is the Battle of Antietam at 3,700, then Gettysburg at 3,200, then 9/11 at 3,000, and then every day of the last week takes up the next 4 slots, followed by Pearl Harbor at number 10. We are experiencing a historic slaughter every day, and still a large chunk of our population denies the virus is a threat and discards all safety precautions, merrily spreading it at full bore under the guiding leadership of the Trump administration and the new GOP death cult. This is the damage that a culture of faith-based reasoning does in stark detail. If you want to get a taste of how misinformation and faith-based reasoning have been poisoning the efforts to pass even measures like ranked choice voting, there's an article below where an advocate shares their experience. They describe being met with misleading facts, false facts, and outright fabrications. This culture of misinformation is not going to confine itself to any one arena. It will poison intellectual discussion and the fate of all of us. We must find a way to deal with it. The Overseas Development Institute, in studying cash transfers across the world, found that most had a multiplier effect on the economy of between 1.5 to 2.5, meaning that for every dollar you put into the cash grant, it creates $1.5 to $2.5 in economic growth. This is a vital point for us to ingrain in the public discourse. UBI is not a cost, it is an economic stimulus, an investment that grows the money you put into it. Which leads us to the big news of the day, which is that UBI Works, the advocacy group in Canada, has funded a new study of UBI via the Canadian Centre of Economic Analysis, and the findings are much in line with previous data, which is to say, staggeringly positive. Quote, UBI would not only lift more than 3.2 million Canadians out of poverty, it would also create hundreds of thousands of new jobs, grow the economy by tens of billions of dollars, and eventually pay for itself with increased tax revenues. It has the potential to essentially eliminate poverty in Canada. End quote. The report found that a UBI proposal would grow the Canadian economy by $80 billion a year, create 600,000 jobs over 5 years, increase disposable income by $122 billion for the bottom 60%, eliminate poverty, and grow the middle class, more than double private capital investments per year, and do it all while paying for itself in economic growth. Now, I kind of doubt that they really mean that it pays for itself in tax revenue alone, as that would be vastly different from previous findings. I think they likely mean it'll grow the economy by far more than the cost, but I haven't had time to read the report yet. Hopefully I'll get a chance to dig into it and get back to you on that. Shout out to Hugh Goulburn, who yesterday became the first mayor in the UK to back a feasibility study into a UBI pilot. UBI Lab strikes again. Maybe they can get their own Mayors for AGI coalition going over there. Yang will be hosting a Q&A with the Georgia High School Democrats Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, followed by a phone bank for Ossoff and Warnock. Register below. And finally, if you want a unique present for a gardener in your life, Humanity Forward is selling plantable cards for a limited time. They're tasteful cards with seeds embedded in the paper that will sprout flowers when planted. The world gets a little weirder each day. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the Deadliest Days list, the UBI study, and the stimulus checks letter. Call the Congressional Switchboard. Send a letter to Pelosi and Mitch. Thank the congresspeople who are speaking out for checks. Don't forget to put in your half hour a day of phone banking or text banking to support the efforts in Georgia. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way. And don't forget to Yang Daily.